following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages.
Tonight, Sri Lanka has dealt with a number of environmental issues in the recent past, and despite the efforts of and discourses initiated by environmentalists, citizens and the authorities, these issues persist. The newest such issue is the decision taken by the government to place the Muthurajawela wetland under the Urban Development Authority, which some parties believe that would lead to development activities detrimental to this protected area. Some parties even sought the support of the Supreme Court, and the matter has now evolved to a national level issue. Good evening, I'm Suzanne Shanali. This is Derana and the Morning Investigates. The Muthurajawela wetland is a key wetland that has been a topic of discussion for many years owing to its environmental importance and also due to the environmental destruction taking place in the area. The wetland has been under threat due to racketeers' activities as well. The newest controversy surrounding the Muthurajawela wetland began after the government gazetted the wetland under the Urban Development Authority or the UDA with the aim of conserving the area and protecting it from land grabs. The gazette notification dated 7th of October, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said, "By virtue of the powers vested in me under Section 2 of the Urban Development Projects, Act 2 of 1980, I, upon the recommendation of the Minister in charge of the subject of urban development, being of the opinion that the Muthurajawela marshy land described more fully in the schedules hereto are urgently required for the purpose of conservation and sustainable use of the Muthurajawela environmentally sensitive zone and to develop such as a Ramsar wetland by preventing the unauthorized filling and encroachment of its land plots, do by this order declare that the said lands are required for such purpose." The Gazette notification resulted in a number of parties including political parties, religious leaders and the civil society voicing opposition against the government's decision, predominantly because of the alleged development projects that are going to be implemented in the area in question. At the same time, what would happen if those living in and around the surrounding area of the gazetted area and the flora and fauna in the area were topics of discussion? On the 5th of November, the main parliamentary opposition party, the Samega Janabalawege or the SJB, filed a fundamental rights petition in the Supreme Court seeking an order nullifying the aforementioned gazette notification. SJB parliamentarian Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, one of the petitioners, speaking to the media, alleged the government has started robbing lands and that such land theft is expanding and that therefore everyone should take a stance against this attempt. He added,
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී එකමුතු වුණොත් අපේ ගෙවල් අපේ පාසල් ටික අපේ ක්‍රීඩා පිට්ටනි ටික අපේ පල්ලි ටික අපේ සිද්ධාස්ථාන ටික ආරක්ෂා කරගන්නට අපිට පුළුවන්කම ලැබේවි. එහෙම නොවුනොත් කුණු කොල්ලට චීනට කොරියාවට විකුණලා මේ ප්‍රදේශයන් වල ජීවත් වෙච්ච අපි සියලු දෙනාම එළවල දාන්නට කටයුතු කරයි කියලා අපිට හැඟෙනවා. නාලක ගොඩහේවා මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට ඇමතිවරයාට අපි කියනවා ගිහිල්ලා නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියට අයත් පනත කියවන්න කියලා. නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියේ පනත අනුව ඕනම අවස්ථාවක ඒ අයට ලබා ගන්නා වූ ඉඩම් අත්පත් කර ගන්නා වූ ඉඩම් විකුණන්න පුළුවන්, බදු දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම ඒ ඉඩම් සංවර්ධනය කරන්න පුළුවන්. රැම්සා තෙත්බිමක් කරන්නට අවශ්‍ය නම් රැම්සා පනත අනුව රැම්සා කන්වෙන්ෂන් එක අනුව ඒක සංවර්ධනය කරන නියාමනය කරන ආයතනයකට ලබා දෙන්න බෑ. ඒක වනජීවි අමාත්‍යාංශයට එහෙම නැත්නම් වන සංරක්ෂණයටයි ලබා දෙන්න ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, filed a writ petition before the Supreme Court, seeking an order revoking the Gazette notification. He claimed that the residents living in the area in question would be affected by the government's decision. Expressing his opinions about the matter, President of the Archbishop's Committee for the Protection of Muthurajawela, Dinushanana Kara said,
එතකොට අපි දැකපු දෙයක් තමයි අපිට විශාල වශයෙන්ම මේ මුතුරාජවැල බේරා ගැනීම සිද්ධ කරන්න උනේ පවතින හැම වෙලාවෙම පවතින රජයෙන් සහ රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන්ගෙන්. එතකොට මේ මුතුරාජවැල සුරැකීමේ සටනේදී ඇත්තටම ඒ දේශපාලනඥයෝ එහෙම නැත්නම් රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරී බොහෝම මේ අතලොස්සක් හැරුණකොට වෙන කිසිම කෙනෙක් මේ මුතුරාජවල රකින්න ඕනේ කියන තැනට කටයුතු කරේ නැහැ. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ හැම වෙලෙම ගිහිල්ලා හිටගත්තේ මේක විනාශ කරන එහෙම නැත්නම් මේකට මහ පරිමාණයෙන් හානි කරන මිනිසුන්ගෙන් පිටිපස්සේ.
Adding that certain recent incidents involving the Muthurajawela wetlands show strong political support to acts that are detrimental to the area, he said.
එතකොට මේ ගැසට් පත්‍ර එහෙමත් නැත්නම් මේ රාජ්‍ය මැදිහත් වීම මේ ආකාරයෙන් අපිට මේක විශ්වාස කළ නොහැකි. මොකද අපි දන්නවා විවිධ රජයන් ඔවුන් මේ වෙනකොට මොකද්ද පරිසරය වෙනුවෙන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ, පරිසරය රැක ගැනීමට කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවද, පරිසරය හානි වෙන ආකාරයෙන් කටයුතු කරනවද කියන එක අපි දන්නවා. ඉතින් මේ එන ගැසට් පත්‍ර එහෙමත් නැත්නම් විශේෂයෙන් මේ මුතුරාජවැල අබේ භූමිය ඇතුළු මේ කලාපය වනජීවි දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව යටතේ තිබිච්ච කලාපයක්. මේ කලාපය ඒ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවෙන් ඉවත් කරලා නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියට ගැනීම පිළිබඳව අපිට විශාල ගැටලුවක් තියෙනවා. තියෙන නීති පනත් ඇති මුතුරාජවැල රැක ගන්න ඒවා ක්‍රියාත්මක කරමින් මේක රැක ගන්න කියන එකයි අපි කියන්නේ. දැන් මේ නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියට පවරා ගැනීමේ ගැසට් පත්‍රයේ තුරින් යම්කිසි විශාල ලෙස හානිදායී දෙයක් මේ මුතුරාජවැල අබේ භූමියට සහ මේ ප්‍රදේශයට සිද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
To look into how development projects have and might in the future affect the Muthurajawela wetland, we spoke to several environmentalists who are familiar with the matter. Centre for Environmental Justice, or the CEJ, Executive Director Hemantha Withanage claimed that land grabbing has been a pressing and exacerbating issue in the said area, and that politicians are also part of such activities. He alleged that politicians encouraging and supporting people to illegally acquire lands in the area is also prevalent. Some of these illegally acquired land slots, according to Withanage, are as big as 100 to 150 acres. Alleging that certain firms and individuals have illegally acquired hundreds of acres in the area, Withanage said,
that area overlaps with the wildlife sanctuary as well as the Central Environmental Authority environmental sensitive area. Now it is a very, very complex situation. So if you want to protect this land, so there should be a strong law, or otherwise you should allow the wildlife department to declare that as a wildlife reserve. But in order to do that, you have to take out all the people, including churches. Sometimes there are church, and sometimes many local communities. But at the same time, there are many private owners, including industries, hoteliers, and everybody is there. So that is one of the issue we have.
He also raised concerns about the type of protection the area in question requires, and said that the government declaring this wetland area under the UDA is concerning because the UDA's mandate is not protecting wildlife areas. Adding that there are experiences that prove what he said about the UDA's role, Withanage noted that it is impossible for them to trust the UDA as an agency that is concerned about conserving the area in question.
I think that's a major concern right now. Whether this declaration in this gazette is actually for the conservation purposes or the development purposes. If you read that gazette, they say it's for conservation, it's for a Ramsar site, but at the same time, there's a word development is there. When you say development, and maybe this government, I don't know how they are going to do that, but this government also, or maybe any other future government, they can say this land is declared under the Urban Development Authority for development purposes, and they can take all the land and give it away to some private contractor or more than one contractor. That is one of the issues, and I don't trust the Urban Development Authority as a conservation agency, and definitely this will finally end up having a development area. It is a land area very next to the Colombo, and definitely there's a bigger demand for those land areas. So that's why we are suspicious about this Urban Development Authority gazette press that just by declaring land without giving compensation or without giving adequate facilities for those people who are already in those lands, it will not guarantee the protection. And definitely, once they remove all these local people, so then the local people have no right, then they can easily sell the lands to the private sector. So we are fear because of there are several lands in Colombo have been identified for selling to the private sector, probably foreigners. So we don't want that to happen to the Muthurajawela Lagoon, and there are, some of the proposals are having a railway, monorail from airport to the to Bopitia, this housing complex, and the sort of a Disneyland kind of thing, and putting a helipad. And all of them are not going to be positive development for the lagoon, because we want the lagoon to be developed as a flood retention area, biodiversity retention area, and also it gives the greenery, it gives the oxygen, it gives the fish life and all of them. So that is not the expectation of the Urban Development Authority or any of these businesses. So that is why we have to be very careful about this new gazette.
According to the government, this unrest is purely because of a misunderstanding that occurred due to the confusion of the gazette notification. What is the standing of the government about this issue? After the break, we investigate further. Welcome back. There are many protests and objections rising from society due to this gazette notification. What is the government's stance regarding this matter? Here's the rest of our investigation. Despite strong, mounting opposition from various parties, the government maintains that its intention, as mentioned in the aforementioned gazette notification, is to conserve and ensure the sustainable use of the said area. They also claim that the ongoing protests are unwarranted because the initiative announced through the gazette notification is unlikely to lead to any environmental damage. While the environment authorities, including subject ministers, have said so, Dr. Godaheva pointed out that there has been a miscommunication or misunderstanding when the objectives of this plan were conveyed to the public, which he said has led to these protests. Speaking of this during a program on Derana, Dr. Godaheva explained.
Muthurajawela is a real misunderstanding that His Eminence and many other people are having at the moment, because we are trying to help them. We are trying to actually deliver what they wanted from us, and they have misunderstood that what our good intentions. Let me go and explain how it happened. Almost a year ago, His Eminence, the Cardinal himself, had a press conference and challenged the government, saying there is certain private party is in the process of acquiring land in Muthurajawela, and they are going to build a golf course, put up hotels, helicopter stand, all those things, and they wanted us to stop that. So then President wanted 3 ministries to get involved and look into that. What are the 3 ministries? Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Urban Development, and Ministry of Wildlife, because all these have some role to play. This whole area is anyway gazetted as a urban development area, entire Gampa district. When we went into details, we appointed the 3 secretaries of the ministries to chair a committee, look into that. They studied this case and came back and said, Muthurajawela wetland, which was about 7,000 hectares about 3 decades ago, has now been reduced to about 1,000 plus hectares, right? And it is getting diminished with time.
Following the evaluation of the situation, Dr. Godaheva said the 3 ministries, including the State Ministry, looked into preserving the area in question, particularly to prevent the deteriorating situation from causing an impact on the worsening flood situation in the Gampa district.
And in order to safeguard the wetlands and to preserve them as they are, we have to take them under the government control.
He said, adding that the three ministries, including the State Ministry, had proposed to bring the said area under the UDA, taking into account the fact that the Environment and Wildlife Conservation Ministries did not have the necessary financial resources to make land acquisitions if a need arose. He added that the plan proposed by the said three ministries, including the State Ministry, is to place the whole remaining wetland area under the UDA, preserve that area, and then to hand it over to the Wildlife Conservation Ministry as a wildlife sanctuary. He further added,
The area that was identified in that gazette are only the wetlands plus the lagoon, right? And there are no areas where people are living. But when you publish that gazette, in the gazette, you have to give the Google coordinates for the lagoon and the wetlands, and when you get the Google coordinates, you have to mention the adjacent villages. Otherwise, you can't explain the border. No? Let's say if you want to explain the lagoon is adjacent to the Akurana Grama Seva division, you have to mention that. So in the gazette, there are 52 Grama Seva divisions mentioned, and the people misunderstood that. People thought we are going to go and acquire those villages, and even the church misunderstood that. People misunderstood that. Our own politicians misunderstood that.
Dr. Godaheva stressed that the government is only proposing to protect the wetlands and the lagoon, and that it is the only way to save it for the future generation. Meanwhile, Vithanage spoke about managing the Muthurajawela wetland area in a sustainable manner. First and foremost, he said that Sri Lanka has adequate laws and policies to protect the environment, adding that enforcement of these laws and policies, however, is not taking place properly.
I think the governments have to respect to those laws. We have adequate laws in the country, but disregarding all these laws and regulations, government is violating, and they have even deregulated some of the forest areas. For example, the other state forest, which is about 500,000 hectares, which was under control of the forest department, now taken out, and now it has given to the Pradesh Lekam, the divisional secretary.
In order to develop the Muthurajawela wetland area in a sustainable manner, Vithanage said that the government should consider placing the area under the DWC.
I think the best thing you can do is to declare this under the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, that is under the Wildlife Authority. You can declare this as a conservation area, the wildlife reserve. And then you develop. But the problem is wildlife department doesn't have the money, and wildlife law is not strong. So if the government want this land to be purchased from the local communities, pay that compensation, etc., and then give it to the wildlife department, and you have to declare this under the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, not under the Urban Development Authority.
Meanwhile, Biodiversity Conservation and Research Cycle, or the BCRC, convener Supun Lailu Prakash said that the conservation and the protection of the Muthurajawela wetland area should be done under the supervision of the DWC, even though the Gazette vested that power with the UDA. He also questioned the UDA's suitability to be in control of the Muthurajawela wetland area, which according to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, is home to a large number of endemic and threatened species. Reiterating that the UDA cannot be trusted to conserve the area in question the same way the DWC would have done, he said that it is extremely important to ensure that the wetlands remain under the DWC. Speaking about the future of the conservation, Prakash further said,
and we strongly believe that if we can improve the status of conservation from sanctuary to national park, we can do it. Another series of recommendations are there. We want to improve the status of the protection as national park, and we should clearly demarcate the boundaries of the national park, and wildlife department should be enforced with adequate infrastructure, and there should be continuous and very effective and strengthened way to conserve the wetland.
In addition, future conservation efforts, according to Prakash, could be further strengthened by finding out some of the details about the area that remain unclear. To do that, he suggested that steps be taken to identify what areas of the wetland should receive priority with regard to conservation efforts and what risks and benefits are unique to those areas. He also noted that some lands in the same area remain unprotected and that all sensitive areas should come under the DWC. While some opposing the government's decision are concerned about the natural resources and the people living in the area, whether the UDA has the capacity and interest to protect the natural resources in the area is a much bigger concern. Although the UDA has the capacity to manage the residents and the buildings in the area, how is it going to identify and properly conserve the natural resources is a question that is yet to be answered. Thank you for taking the time to join us on Investigates. Investigates will return next week with another matter that affects you and me. Till then, see you soon.